Live from a bunker in the heart of the Ozarks, a podcast that's craving a giant soft pretzel right now for some reason. It's Sif Pop. Welcome to Sif Pop Weekly, streaming live most Fridays, are available to download later in your podcast feed, unless, of course, you're a patron.
Patrons get perks.
Patrons get those perks.
You know, I used to work at Annie Ann's.
I'm your host, Aaron Dicer, and get this man a ballerina and a plumber. It's Andrew Ormsby, ladies and gentlemen.
Ahoy!
Each week we'll chat about movies, TV, and whatever else from the pop culture universe is on our minds. And please welcome our guest this week. She can't wait to try a breakfast-flavored ice cream sandwich. It's Susan Comyob Stevens.
Woo!
Hi. That sounds
Susan.
so gross, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, pretzels and ice cream sandwiches. That is just a smattering of the foods that were in the movies we saw this week.
Yeah.
Actually, both of those were in the same movie. So yes, we are talking about Magic Mike's Last Dance and Somebody I Used to Know on Amazon Prime today. So those are the movies. How is everybody doing? Susan, how you been? It's been a hot second. How are things going?
That's good. It's oddly been so busy.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's really, I don't feel like we got like that usual downtime with movies in January. Like February is a really busy movie month. I think there's a lot of great releases, especially with even the streaming going on, but been doing well.
Yeah, I think anytime there is a time where generally movies kind of take a little bit of a quality break, the streamers are going, maybe I could go there and, find some audience. Plus, there's just so much content and so much content that has been delayed and is finally getting out. And a lot of the stuff you're seeing right now, I think, in fact, both of these, maybe not Magic Mike's Last Dance. I should look that up to be sure. But I know Somebody I Used to Know was written during the pandemic, and that basically Allison Brie and Dave Franco were like, hey, let's write something together while we're cooped up. And that's where it came from. So
Yeah.
So that's kind of, we're seeing a lot of that right now. Like a lot of the ways people were productive when they were locked down are now ready to go, hey, world, check it out. And so there's going to be that glut for a little bit, I think, as we kind of find whatever the new balance is in the world. But you're not wrong. It's been an interesting winter, early year. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Was the CCA date, was that right around the same time it normally happens, or was it pushed back?
It's back to normal. It was
That's
back to
it's
normal.
back to normal, yeah.
Okay.
So
Because I didn't know if that was like playing a factor in why you thought like things were so hectic still, even afterwards.
usually between CCA and Oscars, and this year has been this way for me too. It's just I can't get out of my old patterns. I'm watching the movies as they come out, but between CCAs and Oscars, I am usually catching up on TV because there's like a 3-month process where I'm just watching nonstop movies, towards the end of the year to make sure I've seen everything, and I just stop watching television. And so any of my shows that I like or whatever shows that I would like that come out during that time, I have no concept of until, the end of January. So, so for the last 3 weeks or so, I've been really binging a lot of TV and enjoying some stuff.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it becomes interesting in that way.
Yeah, we do get a little break after the show is over. I mean, pretty much watched everything Oscars has. Oh, I am watching the shorts right now. I want to watch all the shorts so I can.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I try to predict the ballot.
Yes. And I'm glad you mentioned that, Susan, because that leads right into this announcement. You can make your Sposkers pick right now. If you go to sifpop.com and click on Sposkers, you can pick in all the categories. We usually have 100 or so people who pick, including a lot of our quote-unquote experts who are on the show. Including Susan, who has filled out a ballot on that a couple times.
I'm the quote-unquote.
You're not the quote. You usually win this game, Andrew, so you don't get to be
win
the quote.
it? I always wonder who wins the Sposkers.
I am terrible at most things when it comes to this show. I'm just going to go ahead and blatantly say that. Like whenever it comes to the Summer Sum game
Mhm.
or Emmys, I never get
Mhm.
anything right. But Oscars, that's my jam. I don't know why. It's the only thing I can predict right every single year.
You get
We
like the
hit
full ballot, right? Like you don't miss one.
I'll miss like one or two. Or
Nobody's ever gotten a
three.
full ballot.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
highest anybody has ever gotten is to miss 2. I think that's the highest that anybody has. No, wait, there's 23 categories now. There used to be 24, but the sound
24.
categories went together.
Yeah.
So I think there's 23 now. So I think it was 1. I think there was a single miss from someone last year. Andrew, you missed 3 last year. But 1, the battle between us that happens. We are 3-3 since we've been doing this. Andrew has won 3. I've won 3 in our head-to-head. And oftentimes it comes down to the last
Time.
category.
Or
Yeah,
time.
it comes down to the tiebreaker, actually. Yeah, which is time of broadcast. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. If you want to play along on Oscars Sunday, which I believe is what, the 12th of March?
The 12th of
Yeah.
March. Yeah.
March 12th.
This year, we will do a live reaction broadcast to the Oscars with several of the Sif Pop writers and people who are in town. We do a full Sif Pop weekend where we watch every single nominated movie for Best Picture over the course of 3 days, and then culminate with the live show. During that live show, we will update live who's ahead, the winners, all that kind of stuff on this contest. So if you're interested in playing along, go to sifpop.com and click on Sposkers and fill that out. You will have up until March 12th to fill it out, the morning of March 12th. But get it in early so you don't forget. Well, with that in mind, let's head on to the movies we're going to review today. And let's kick it off with Magic Mike's Last Dance. Mike Lane takes to the stage again after a lengthy hiatus following a business deal that went bust, leaving him broke and taking bartender gigs in Florida. For what he hopes will be one last hurrah, Mike heads to London with a wealthy socialite who lures him with an offer he can't refuse and an agenda all of her own. Magic Mike's Last Dance really just brings back Channing Tatum from the people we kind of know from the others, with maybe some cameos. Salma Hayek stepping in to play the other main role in this. What did you guys think about Magic Mike's Last Dance? This, of course, is the third Magic Mike movie after Magic Mike and XXL. Soderbergh directed the first one, but not the second one, but is back directing this one. What do you think? Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay? Susan, your thoughts first.
I liked it.
Nice. Andrew.
I am gonna mostly be talking about the things I don't like in this movie, but honestly, I had such like the experience of going to this movie was probably one of the most fun I've ever had. So I'm gonna go with liked it.
All right.
Aaron, Aaron missed out on the best theater experience of his life by 2 rows.
Okay.
I will say it's interesting. I guess I'll go ahead and say that for me, it was on the low side of just okay. I did not like this movie. But it's fine. Soderbergh doesn't make bad movies. He just doesn't. He knows how to make, tell really good stories. But I will say the first Magic Mike movie was one of the most interesting movie-going experiences I ever had. It was me and probably 150 women. And it was one of the rowdiest crowds I've ever been in.
Yeah.
And it's what's really interesting about the original Magic Mike experience is that was not the movie Soderbergh was making. He was not making a celebration of flesh movie. He was making a movie about how dark and extreme that world can be. It was not a feel-good movie, and yet the crowds were treating it like a Chippendales performance, right? Because of the dancing and the stripping, which is amazing athletically, amazing sensually, like it's super sexy. But at the same time, Soderbergh was trying to draw a comparison of that sexiness to the underbelly, right? So that was a really weird experience. Then Magic Mike XXL comes out, And that is one where they're like, oh, we're going to embrace what the crowd thought Magic Mike was going to be, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're just going to make it fun, and we're going to have these crazy choreographed dance numbers, and it's going to be wild. So it's interesting to see Soderbergh come back and then go, okay, let's take what XXL did, but then adjust it to a more what I wanted to do. So you can kind of almost see him trying to balance those things. I don't know it completely works. But man, the Magic Mike trilogy is just a really interesting exploration of how the audience can define content more than even the creators can. And it's really been interesting to see. But you guys like this movie more than me. And Susan, it sounds like you maybe liked it the most. So we'll let you kind of kick it off. Tell us about some of the things you liked about Magic Mike's Last Dance.
Well, I've watched all three, and I like watching them all at press screenings because the first two they brought in actual strippers that like came into the crowd before the show started. Not that like I cared for that part. I was just like, it really got the crowd going, and exactly like a crowd reaction. This one, they brought male guys or whatever I don't know if they were strippers, but you could take photos with them if you wanted.
Male guys, like mailmen, like postal service
no,
workers?
like they were, I was going to say male dancers, but if they were, they didn't really dance. They just like were shirtless and taking pictures.
Got it, yeah.
And giving like
Beefcakes.
roses, yeah. But it was in a really nice theater, and they encouraged, which isn't my favorite, but they encouraged the crowd to be reactive. They literally said, don't hold it in.
That's what the movie's become.
Yeah. So I was like, great. So they definitely did it. I mean, there was somebody who just kept saying, whoa, from nothing happened. It wasn't even dancing.
Here's the interesting thing too. Even during this movie, you will hear that the movie itself is creating sound from the surround as if it's audience sound.
That is my number one pro. That's my number one pro for this movie.
So there's like hooting and hollering and clapping and stuff that feels like it's coming from your audience, even though it's not. It's a weird thing.
I did notice that, which did help. But yeah, overall, like I didn't mind the first Magic Mike. I thought it was okay. I did think it was dark. I was surprised because you're right. It was very dark.
It's a weird one. It's a weird one.
It's not a happy story. I hated the second one. It was so repetitive. No storyline, bore. And then I think they finally met its full potential with this one. I think they picked an interesting story, like interesting enough for what their goal is. They start with a great, like, effective dance scene, solo, whatever you want to call it. Intimate dancing.
That's a nice way to say it. Effective.
I mean, it's your hook. You're like, whoa, here's what we're in for. All right. And then they just sprinkle in a little dancing, not so much, until this big finale where it builds up. And then I feel like it's earned and I want it. Like I craved it. I was like, yes, give me all the dancing now. I'm ready for it. So, I mean, and I thought Selma Hayek was incredible. I mean, the women were gawking over Channing Tatum. I was gawking over her because I think she's stunning. And I did like the whole, even though ultimately it's still a guy that's saving the day, I like trying to give the power back to the women, including women in the show. And so that was fine.
Andrew, some thoughts?
I don't want to jump into the negatives right away, but
well, you already said you're going to only talk about negatives to a movie you like.
Yeah.
So
but I do want to, before I get into the positives that I have, because I do have positives, I want to go off something that Susan just said about how it's a guy saving the day. And I think that that's my biggest issue with this movie is I think that the messaging in this movie is so muddled and unsure of itself because the entire messaging of this movie, they're telling you the whole thing is empowering women and letting women, choose their own fate. Yet this entire movie is predicated on Mike.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's a conflicting messaging of what you're telling the movie and what your actually execution of the movie is doing. But I did think that kind of part was.
Since you're there, can I go a little further on this? It is one of my main negatives as well. I also feel like the movie doesn't do a good enough job at teaching us why Selma Hayek is that character. Like it does not explain or expound on her in a deep enough way for it to be her movie, right? Like it doesn't give us enough It gives us details, like it gives us plot information and backstory information, but it never feels like if I'm being honest, I don't know that I really like Selma Hayek's character during this movie, at least until maybe the very end. But even on a plot sense and a character sense, the things they're doing with that character they don't give us a lot of time to see the nuance in what that character should be. We're just told, the details of her life, and we're supposed to extrapolate what that means to the character, but we don't really get to feel it from her, to have that scene where we really understand how deeply this conflict lives in her about what it means to be a woman and to be wealthy, but only wealthy because you're attached to a man, or to try to be a mom. The whole mom stuff, this movie doesn't go like there. I was really, really shocked at how surface level we are in the actual exploring of her character for a movie that's trying to say what it's trying to say.
I wish they did dig deeper on that. Just the mom stuff I could have let go, more so that I felt like they were building her up to be the hero, like to be the one to save the day. So that was the one thing I didn't care for, how she just kind of like gave up there in the end. And like I said, like the guy saves the day. So that's kind of annoying, because I was liking her character. I actually didn't know if I should trust her character. I was like, watch her be like a villain in all this. So
I know. Yeah, that's what I think she was kind of a villain for most of the movie. And we didn't get to see the nuance to go, wait, but maybe she's misunderstood. Like I never felt like she had that scene. So
I think it's because the movie fails so spectacularly in its antagonist. I think that if we're to believe, not getting into too many spoilers, but if we're to believe that the husband is the antagonist, I had more screen time than that guy did.
Wait, you were in this movie? That's amazing.
Yeah, I was in the background apparently, but no. But seriously, I think that if you have a villain, you can't just reference the villain. You have to actually show them doing something, and I think that's filmmaking 101. I mean, I don't know how you mess that up. So, but here's my biggest pro for the movie, going back to pros, was the actual movie going experience itself. Because like I alluded to earlier, Aaron missed out on the best movie going experience of his life by 2 rows, because he was behind me by 2 rows. But when I walked into the theater, my seat was right in the middle. They have the assigned seating at this theater. So I know some people are like, why does that matter? But it will. So my assigned seat was in between a group of sorority girls. They were just on one side. And on the other side was 5, at least. Each of them were above 90. 90-year-old.
90?
No, I'm not even. These were white, like nursing home. I'm not trying to be mean, but I'm also not trying to be hyperbolic. It's the fact that these were incredibly old women who like had like crocheted blankets that they were holding. But I tell you, they were hooting and hollering more than anybody. I was cracking up. The sorority girls were cracking up. And since those older women were going, woo, and stuff like that, it made the other sorority girls, that they were like, yeah, woo. Especially there's a scene in this movie where it's 3 more mature women, getting dances and stuff. And I tell you, those 90-year-old women who were to my left, it was like they were in 7th heaven, and they just gave me the biggest smile on my face. And that's why I'm like, objectively, I can look at this movie and notice all the flaws. But if you ask me, did I have a good time watching this movie, then it is a 100% yes, because the going experience, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, if I had not seen this in theaters in that setting, I would be coming in here saying, guys, that's not a good movie. I did not like it. But no, they helped make it one of the best movie going experiences I've ever had. Yeah, so I don't know if I can be truly objective.
It's fun.
I almost said we had some hooters and hollerers, but that could be taken incorrectly. Some hooting people and some hollering people in my row as well. And again, it's such a strange evolution for what this movie is. And there are many ways. And Susan, I know you didn't like XXL. And I
No.
don't know that I really enjoyed it all that much either.
I hated that one.
But I will tell you, of the three movies, I think it does the best at capturing that idea of really just giving the audience what they want. So because the first one, again, super dark.
Yeah.
And this one is much more interested in its central relationship than it really is in the flesh, the celebration of flesh. It's all there. The dance routines are definitely there. But yeah. Anyhow, some other things you guys liked.
I think the dancing was probably the best in this one.
That's
too.
my main. That's my main pro.
That's just because I feel like they were like, you know what? Let's bring some step up quality dancers into this, and that's another reason why I liked it. Because I actually, even though step up franchise movies are not my favorite, you can, if you allow yourself to just like get entranced by the dance moves, they're really impressive. And I thought there was really good choreography in this movie.
Yeah, it was this movie was one of the best episodes of So You Think You Can Dance I've ever seen.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Well, there was an entire montage in the middle of this movie. But I will say, I should have said this in the very beginning. This is the only Magic Mike movie I've seen. I haven't seen the first two. So, and I was trying. Yeah, I was trying to. Okay, yeah, you've really made me question whether I want to go and watch the first two or not.
The first one's not bad. I think the first one was like solid.
It's so different than what the movies have become.
And that's interesting because I wonder if I would have seen this one first and then gone back to see the first two, if I'd have been like, wait, these aren't the same movies at all. Like, what am I?
There's a real cognitive dissonance when you start thinking about these movies of like, because honestly, there are things in the first movie where you watch and you go, they say the opposite things that the second two movies say. Like, they are they have different worldviews, like completely different worldviews. So it's hard to reconcile these three movies as a trilogy. It really is.
Yeah, they're so different. Like they don't feel they really stand alone, each of them.
Yeah. I think that's right.
There's a dance scene at the very beginning of this movie. It might be like one of the sexiest like movie scenes I've ever seen in my entire life.
This is my another pro that I wanted to get to. Soderbergh gets sensuality. He gets it so well. And I think one of the first times I really realized it was watching Out of Sight. The love scene in Out of Sight is so incredibly sensual and tactile. It's not explicit. Actually, neither is any of the dancing in this movie, by the way. It's not like explicitly nude or anything like that. It is sex with clothes on. The dances are, basically having, I didn't even say basically, it's every sexual position you could imagine, but with clothes on. It's athletic sex with clothes on, is what it is. But it's not, man, I just had a realization. The movies we're talking about today deal with the idea of sensuality and nudity in really specific, and they make the same point in the exact opposite ways. That's really interesting. Sorry, that just came to me. But Magic Mike makes the point that you don't have to be naked to be sensual or even sexual. Like it's, there's that thing. And part of what the movie tends to be about is that idea. And he's so good at it. He's so good at it. I mean, it is fire. It's just fire.
Yeah, it is.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that scene in the ballerina scene made me really appreciate the difficulty of this type of choreography.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
So you're saying that this type of dance style isn't really in the first two movies?
No, I don't think so.
It's
not like that. Not to that extent.
No. Here's basically what it is. The first movie, and again, I know how different this sounds, but the first movie is about how false the idea is of presenting your body and those kind of things. The second movie is almost the exact opposite, and it's about how celebratory it can be for women to break out of the repression of their lives and hoot and holler and just admire the physicality of the things that men are doing. And I think there's a chair dance or two in the second movie.
A lot of chair dances. There's a lot. It's so repetitive. Oh my God.
But the chair dances are different than the dances we're seeing here, because chair dances are still about almost a non-participatory idea of this. The dances we're seeing here, that first dance, the ballerina dance, and even these versions of the chair dances are much more about participation. They're much more about two people instead of one, right? Like, so yeah, it's different. Every single movie is different in that way. So yeah. Any other thoughts?
I
Positives.
think that
we can go to negatives. That's fine.
I think that the daughter character is so underutilized here. It's
pointless. We didn't even need her.
Yeah, there's a whole side thing with the daughter, and there's a side thing with the butler and everything, and it seemed like they were characters that were never fully realized, but they were also written already to the point where like, I don't want to take them out. So it's like they're just there to move the plot forward. They don't actually do anything. They're decoration.
Yeah, that's a good way of.
I would go so far as to say the only fully realized character in this movie is Mike, and a lot of that might be that we've seen him in other movies. This movie is not good about realizing its characters, and it makes the whole endeavor, to me, feel empty. I just feel an emptiness about what's going on here. Like, even like reading the plot synopsis, those kind of things, I'm like, yeah, those things kind of happen, I guess, but I'm not invested in them in any way. I'm not, connecting to what it means to people. Also, weird situation where the motivation of the protagonist is not even really their motivation until they decide to make it their motivate. Like, it's a really strange setup to this movie that I don't think it does the characters many favors to what's going on here. So yeah. Other thoughts? Anything else you guys want to say?
No, I think pretty much that. I mean, I agree with you guys, but I feel like overall, when it comes to these Magic Mike films, they're smart to open them around Valentine's Day, because Galentine's Day, girls love when it wasn't 50 Shades of Grey. This comes in, and they love to just watch a movie that entertains. So most of my friends are probably not going to care about the story at all. Like, I have friends who love the second one.
Sure.
They're like, oh, the second one was great. Like, so I think it's doing its job, because I don't think it necessarily cares about the story as much. But you're right. It could have done better with its characters.
I guarantee you Steven Soderbergh cares about the story. I just think he had a difficult time rectifying what the movies had become with his vision of what the movies were. So yeah, it's an interesting one for me. I think there is something to be said for a progression of society away from repression, especially sexual repression. This idea that sex isn't something we can talk about, it isn't something we can know about. Like, it's just it leads to people being closed off about a very real part of their life, and the idea that we can have entertainment that is safe and fun way for women to let that go. I think even Channing Tatum has a paragraph in this movie about, are you ready for the waves of sexually repressed women and how that's going to hit you. And I think there is something to be said for exploring that, trying to understand that, and trying to do better as a society about being more open about sexuality. But at the end of the day, it's, as a movie, it's just not a good movie. It's just not a good movie. So it may be a good experience, and it may be a fun experience, but this is not a good movie, in my opinion.
No, 100% objectively, there's too many flaws with this movie.
No, there's a lot of flaws. I'm looking at it as an entertaining standpoint. That's all.
Yeah, and that's fine.
There's nothing wrong with that.
There absolutely, we talk about that all the time here. There are many different purposes that people have in watching content or experiencing content, and entertainment is a perfectly valid reason to enjoy something. So yeah, there you go. That's Magic Mike's Last Dance. As to yet to be seen if it actually will be the Last Dance. We'll see. I'm guessing on what I've heard about the returns on this one. I think it will be Magic Mike's Last Dance. All right, let's move on to our next movie. Somebody I used to know. On a trip to her hometown, workaholic Allie reminisces with her first love, Sean, and starts to question everything about the person she's become. Things only get more confusing when she meets Sean's fiancée, Cassidy, who reminds her of the person she used to be. This is Allison Brie as Allie, and Jay Ellis as Sean, and Kiersey Clemens as Cassidy. Danny Pudi, who has been friends with Allison since their days on Community, joins in as well. On some of the fun. Haley Joel Osment in there, some others as well. Didn't really hear much of anything about this until just, this last week, and it is out on Prime. What did you guys think? Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay? Andrew?
Did not like it.
Okay. Susan?
I liked it. I would say a little higher side of liked it.
I loved this movie.
Oh, good.
This is one of those movie experiences for me, and I get to start because clearly I liked it more than the two of you. Although Susan, it sounds like you liked it quite a bit as well.
Yeah, I did.
I have this thing that happens sometimes during movies where a movie will start, we'll get a few minutes in, and I'll just be like, oh, please don't be this kind of movie. Please don't go here. Please tell me this isn't what you're doing. And at every step of the way, this movie avoided falling into those tropes and traps. And I was so pleased with the story that I was being told, with how human it was, how authentic it was, how it felt so much more in tune with modern ideas of, what it means to love, what it means to be in a relationship, all those kind of things. This movie does so well. You add to that the fact that Allison Brie is just so charismatic, and she is a terrible person, hopefully trying to become less terrible by the end of the movie. And yet you're still drawn in because, unlike what we talked about with Magic Mike, we do get to see her nuances. We do get to see those conversations where she starts to realize how she's terrible and what she's done and those kind of things. I don't want to spoil any of where this movie goes, because I think part of the real fun of this movie is how it counteracts normal ideas of rom-coms and where you think things are going. It's a little counterintuitive. But man, I really, really liked, I believed everybody in this movie, and really, really liked, the authenticity of those relationships. Susan, you want to talk now, what are some of your general thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I think you hit on a word that I've been using the most to describe this, which is authentic. And that is, I know I've said it a million times how rom-coms are my favorite genre. But my favorite is when they can kind of reinvent it or refresh it. And I think that's why I was just eating this up, because one, I had no idea where it was going to end. We can predict a rom-com a mile away. I didn't know there were so many different endings I could have thought. I loved Allison Brie's character. I mean, okay, you dislike her, but you also can relate to her. You can understand where she's coming. I understood her. And I just really loved the script. I thought it was funny. I cracked up a lot. They do avoid a lot of cliche tropes that we see in rom-coms. I love the message that they're trying to say. It's, I don't know if that will be a spoiler if I say what the message really is about.
Let me put it this way. This movie, again, succeeds at the thing I think Magic Mike was trying to do with its message, right? This movie is about the idea of what it means to be a fully realized woman who has things that they want to do, desires,
Mhm.
and it wrestles with that in a way that both thinks of the negatives and positives to pursuing your dreams or what that might look like for you, and it puts it not only in relation to one female character, but two female characters. We
Right.
see two female characters go through the nuance of what those kind of
Mhm.
decisions mean. And it really lets the females lead. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I just really liked how it was, about rediscovering yourself and remembering that it is important that you are also with someone who supports your passions. Like it doesn't have to be a sacrifice of one or the other. Because I did think that was one that it was maybe going that way. Like, oh
Hmm.
no, I want that life of giving up my dream and just staying here.
Hmm.
So I really love that it, because I was like, no, you shouldn't have to. I don't know why that happens a lot in romances where some character is like, but I just want to be at home and stay here and I don't need to do my job. And obviously that's okay, but I like when we can see that somebody can do both.
I think the trope has always been, look, the truth of the matter is I see it, my worldview. There's
Mhm.
something really beautiful about sacrificial love. There's
Yeah.
something really beautiful about the idea of looking at somebody and going, we are a team, we are
Mhm.
partners, I love you, and therefore I'm going to give this thing up that is important to me because I know it's better for the team, for us to go this direction or whatever. The problem is in a male dominated storytelling culture that we've had
Yeah.
for a long time, it's almost always the female who is sacrificing so that the
Yes.
man can pursue something big and something meaning. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And so it takes this beautiful idea of sacrificial love and turns it into a very gendered, unfortunate thing and becomes sexist in that way, in my opinion. So to flip that, to start to turn that, to start to understand sacrifice as it relates to humans who love each other, not just gendered humans who love each other, is I think really important, and another one of the things that I really liked about the movie.
Yeah.
So yeah. Andrew, I just want to hear some thoughts. It can be negative. I know you didn't like it, so whatever's on your brain, talk about somebody I used to know.
Well, here's my big issue with this movie, and maybe you guys can help me clarify it. I didn't, the entire time I was watching it, know what type of movie this wanted to be. Like when the movie first
Mm.
started, I thought it was going to be like Garden State, and then after that, it turned into like, oh, is this going to be Ticket to Paradise? Like is it going to be
Take it
the
to
classic?
Paris.
And it kind of, whenever I was starting to get a grasp on like what the movie was trying to be, it would switch in my mind. I'm like, okay, so I never throughout was I like comfortable in like the type of story I was being told because I never knew what type of story I was being told.
Yeah, I think when those kind of things happen, there are two ways you can go on that. And I think the type of movie this wanted to be was somebody I used to know, right? It wanted
That's
to
fair.
be its
Yeah.
own thing. Like,
Right.
it really doesn't feel totally like any other movie. It has bits and pieces and ideas that feel like other movies, and that's probably what you're dealing with. The other
Mhm.
way to go with that is if the movie feels like those pieces don't fit together, like those tones don't fit together, those ideas don't fit together, then it can feel distracting and a bad overall experience. But I didn't feel that with this movie. I felt like all the pieces fit together. Do you feel like the pieces fit together, even though you couldn't kind of place them?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was
Okay.
it felt like the tones in the movie shifted, and that's what it was for me. That was like, oh, okay,
There is
so
a little bit of it. There is a little bit of a tone shift from L.A. to Leavenworth, which, by the way,
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
say this right now. Some of my best friends lived in Leavenworth
Oh, that's a
for
real place?
that is a real place that really looks like that.
That's awesome.
Lived there for years. It is also a tiny town.
Island.
Like it's I don't think it's an island.
No, I was thinking of some other place, but yeah, you're right.
But it's a small town. It's not like it's a giant area. So it was really interesting to see them in Leavenworth. But I
Mm.
do think there is a little bit of a tone shift from LA to the rest of the movie, basically. in almost the comedy of it. The stuff in LA is a little over the top. Like, and I think that's intentional. Like we mentioned the breakfast flavored ice cream sandwiches or some of the jokes in those first 5 to 10 minutes. The way the reality show is kind of portrayed is really kind of over the top, almost satire. It's so over the top. So that was a little bit of shifting down for me. I do think it's intentional. I think we're supposed to see Los Angeles as this over the top, satirized place, whereas Leavenworth is like, oh, here's where we find humanity and authenticity and those kind of things. So that was the tone shift that I felt. But I think it was too bad.
I didn't mind it. I didn't feel like the tone shifted too far off from me because I always felt like there was a little bit, not dark, but maybe a little bit heavier than like a really bright romantic comedy. But again, that made me feel like I was walking into a romantic comedy that was realistic, like almost like kind of like a 500 Days of Summer vibe for me. Like those kinds of just like, I don't know. And I think that it touches, I may even makes a joke, like you're not going to like my best friend wedding me or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And, but which I don't think they like copied that at all either. So I agree. I think it just wants to be its own film and they do a good job of that.
It also does this amazing job at turning your audience motivations on their head. So in most rom-coms you go into, the thing the movie wants the audience to root for is a relationship, right? The thing it tries to make the audience root for through a meet cute and then things that keep them apart and then, oh, let's get them. Hopefully they'll get back to, like the idea is the movie wants us to root for a relationship. Other rom-coms that are like this, the movie wants us to pick a side. They want us to go, okay, who are you rooting for? What is your, who do you want to be together in this movie, to see romance between? This movie hints at both of those things before going, you know what we want our audience to do is to care about these characters and want them to grow. That is such a really interesting shift that happens in this movie that by the end, I'm not rooting for any particular relationship necessarily. I'm just rooting for all of these characters to figure things out and to grow and to know who they are. That's tricky, and I think the movie pulls it off pretty well. So I really appreciated that about the movie.
Here's my biggest issue with the movie. I don't think Sean is a good character.
Interesting.
Really?
Yeah.
We can
At the risk of being spoilerish, whenever Allie gets into town and she's sitting at that bar and they have that initial meeting and stuff. Then they go out and they have this great night. They get giant pretzels and they go dancing in like the town square and everything. He's getting married in a week, and he's out here flirting with his ex.
I think you're feeling exactly the things the movie wants you to be feeling. I don't think that's accidental.
I mean,
he's not the only messed up authentic person in this movie, though.
Right. I would say a lot of people would say Alison Brie's character is really unlikable. Like, I mean,
she is.
Right. So it's like, I think you're right that but again, I think by the end of it, they explain well enough why the characters were the way they were. Like,
I think it feels very authentic.
Yeah.
I think none of his decisions feel over, like mustache twirly or over the top. Like it feels authentically like what a human being might do if confronted with the situation he was confronted with. Is it a wrong choice? Yeah, I think we'd all say it's a wrong choice. But it definitely feels like a choice somebody might make. Even a person who's typically a good person might make that choice. Like
these characters are also, they're human. They're not the typical rom-com characters who like usually the male lead, like you think of like 27 dresses or something. And the boss that she was going after was just Mr. Perfect. I mean, not a single thing wrong with him. I mean, we're not perfect. So I appreciated that about the movie. Honestly, even his own fiance wasn't that like perfect herself.
I agree.
She had her flaws too.
Yeah. I think it's really, again, I just come away from it going, I don't know that I've ever seen, that's probably too much of an exaggeration. That's a bit of hyperbole, but it's very rare to see a movie treat its characters with this level of authenticity and humanity in a rom-com like this. It's usually a lot more cookie cutter.
And I have to, just because I mentioned 500 Days of Summer, and I don't know if Joseph Gordon-Levitt's mentioned this. I know I've seen him mention it in interviews and stuff, but it's a very like one-sided point of view. Like like you automatically root for Tom, but in reality, if you really watch it back, like, is he not the problem because he's not listening to Summer? It's just, I think this film does a really good job of showing all points of view to where I can see where all the characters are in the wrong or in the right. I don't feel like even though it's obviously Alison Brie's character, I don't think it's just like, I mean, we don't not naturally root for her. We could, but we don't. I don't know who we root for. We just, like you said, we kind of
root for Julie Haggerty is who we root for. Always root for Julie Haggerty.
Always root for Julie Haggerty. That's one of our primary laws here at Sif Pop. Yeah, what else do we want to talk about in this movie? I don't want to give things away. We won't do a Sif spoil on it. It's not like there's a lot necessarily to talk about that we need to spoil. But I also don't want to kind of ruin your own experience if you haven't seen it of kind of what goes on. I think this movie is really funny. I guess we haven't talked about the humor. I laughed quite a bit in this movie.
Laughed a lot.
And I think that is very difficult to do sometimes. So many of the side characters, the idea that her mom is always having sex at their house and she just always happens to be walking in on it. Like, there's just some really funny things like that in this movie.
I love Haley Joel Osment's movie references.
Oh, Haley Joel Osment is hilarious in this movie.
So
Brendan Fraser, Blast from the Past.
And it's so good because you know somebody like that. I am kind of like that. Like, you know that person who in the movie has such a good balance of being like rolling your eyes at that person, but also kind of inside kind of giggling. Like, it is kind of funny. And the movie is so devoid of the big moment where the big conflict is set up, where it's like, oh, but then, I guess the only place would be maybe the parents of the bride stuff. But I think the movie very smartly just uses that as a plot piece as opposed to trying to make it like full backstory. It just allows it to be a reference point to what's going on with the main characters. But as far as like having like the best friend who, gets angry and messes things up, or the family doesn't quite like this person, but they like this person, like everybody just was kind of being awesome, normal people and just kind of doing awesome, normal stuff. So yeah, I think the movie really handled that stuff well.
Yeah.
And I will mention, maybe it's my one last thing. If you guys have anything else you want to mention, feel free. I will mention as my one last thing, that revelation I had that this movie also separates nudity from sexuality in the opposite direction. Literally as a major plot point of this movie is the idea of that nudity doesn't have to mean sexuality. And I find that really interesting how the two movies we reviewed today are related. In so many different ways.
Why wasn't our best ever challenge best nudist movies?
Best non-sexual nudity in movies. That's an interesting topic. And honestly, again, back to the repression thing, we could do a much better job at understanding the human body is not inherently sexual. Like, it's okay, people. Like, you guys have any last things?
Olga Merediz, who plays Jojo, the mother.
Yeah.
Every single time I see her in something, I just want to give her a big hug. She seems
she's
so
the best.
awesome.
Yeah.
Like in The Heights,
great.
I fell in love with her when she was the abuela. And here she has a loving presence to her. And she just makes me smile whenever I see her on screen.
It's another really realistic character. And with both her, and I love, again, that's another thing. It would be very easy to make her character like Alison Brie and be like not into, or one or the other. Like, I mean, she could have liked one or the other more, but she loved the fiance and she still had that great relationship with Alison Brie. So it's just nice to see that instead of going.
There's none of that false tension. There's none of that like cooking up conflict that doesn't have to be there.
Right.
Kind of stuff.
So authentic.
Yeah. I guess I also have to mention Franco. I think he is a good director, and I think a lot of the choices that are made here, a lot of the performances that he's getting and choosing in the edit room or whatever, are really great choices. There are some things done here, and this is probably more in the writing, which he, wrote again, co-wrote this with Allison. There's some really interesting things how Allison's job as a reality show, I guess, showrunner, but we're seeing a lot of the skills of a reality show producer, which, by the way, are two different things. Usually the showrunners for reality shows aren't the one producing like the interview segments and those kind of things. But there is this thing I've heard some of them talk about as a producer, how you get good interviews out of people, right? And this movie takes that actual specific skill from her job and makes it an integral part of the movie. And there are several moments where we see something done in that way, and then a very powerful moment where it's reversed. And I just think that's really smart and really well done. So props on the actual like movie making part of it too. I think Franco deserves some of that. And just and even just, I mean, I guess as funny as maybe that kind of coda at the nudist, place is supposed to be, it's also really meaningful and plays right into what the movie is saying in a couple different ways. And man, I just left this movie so impressed. I really did. I love this movie. I think it's really well done. So
it's really good. I agree.
One I would definitely check out. If you're a rom-com person, ask yourself if you are a PG-13 rom-com person or a rated R rom-com person, because this is definitely a rated R rom-com. Just, so you know that going into it. But that is somebody I used to know on Prime.
Oh, by the way, I was very disappointed that song wasn't in the movie.
Oh, that would have, I would not like that.
I can't, every time it pops into my head every time I hear the title, but I guess I'll mention, since you brought it up, I think the soundtrack to this movie is pretty great too. There's some amazing songs, and they're used really, really well. Yeah,
that's kind of where I'm getting the Garden State vibes from this movie.
Yeah, sure.
It's very, that upper New Englandish, rainy-ish weather, and then an awesome indie soundtrack.
Yep.
Yeah, it's good.
Before we head on to the best ever challenge, want to say thank you to our SIF Pop members and let you know that the members only pre-show is now the members only Ormsby pre-show, or MOOPS. Andrew Ormsby has taken over the members only pre-show. So if you are a SIF Pop member, this week you will get to hear a fun trivia game that we did. You will get to hear some more drunk Sif Pop if you enjoy that. Lots of fun stuff, and maybe even the return of Do We Care? Our members getting some fun stuff. Check out what that is at patreon.com/SifPop. And really just thanks for liking what we do enough to throw a couple bucks our way. That's really humbling and means the world to us. So check that out at patreon.com/SifPop. All right, best ever challenge today is best ever dance movies. Now, I will say this is not best ever movies that have a lot of dancing in them. This is best ever movies where the dancing is part of the actual plot. It means something to the movie, not just that people dance. So, people know my number one movie of all time, Singing in the Rain, not really in this category. It's not a dance movie. It is a movie with some amazing dancing, but it is not a dance movie. So,
whoops.
Did you misunderstand the task at hand, Andrew?
Well, apparently, because the movie just mentioned is on my list. So.
Well, there you go. We'll get into it. We'll go from number 5 to number 1. And as always, if you have it higher, Trump, you can trump it. I'll start us off at number 5. Susan, you've already mentioned these movies. My number 5 is Step Up. I think the original Step Up is a good movie and a really great introduction to one of the most compelling and charismatic actors we have. I think Channing Tatum is great in Step Up, and there's some great dancing, and it's a lot of fun. So Step Up came in at my number 5. Andrew, what is your number 5?
My number 5, we're going all the way back to 1984 with Kevin Bacon and Footloose.
Nah, that's a good choice. Yeah.
Susan,
it's not a Trump because it's my 5 as well.
There you go. Well, we'll talk about it now.
There we go. I mean, I honestly still like the other one too, even the new version, because I really love Miles Teller.
Yeah.
So I really like him in that movie. But yeah, this was a great movie. I mean, it's iconic, really. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There was no way it wasn't going to make my list. It's just it's like you said, it's iconic. And I think that the idea of a town banning rock music and dancing is so ridiculous now for our current times. But to think back, back in the day, that was plausible. And
Yeah.
it's interesting to visit a world like that seems so foreign.
I
Mhm.
grew up in a world like that.
Did you
Yeah.
really?
Well,
You
dancing
couldn't
was
listen to music?
no, I could
Rock
listen to music. No, but dancing was definitely verboten. So yeah.
Mm.
Let's go with your. Oh, I guess it's back to me then, because
You're number four.
both of you had that at number 5. It wasn't in my honorable mentions, by the way. My number 4 is Billy Elliot. I think this is a beautiful movie, well worth seeing. Basically follows the story of this boy learning what it means to love dancing, and deals with gender issues and all sorts of interesting things. So and it's just really well done, very compelling, very emotional, very captivating. I highly recommend Billy Elliot.
I just wish, things would have turned out differently for this Tom Holland character. He really
Yeah.
deserved his. He just never got his big break.
It would have been nice. It would have been nice to see Tom Holland continue to do movies, but
Yeah.
but this was it for them, and that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. Andrew, what is your number 4?
My number 4 is Silver Linings Playbook.
Oh, good choice. Yeah, that's a good choice.
I do think that
Dang, should put that in there.
the dance at the very end, and the working on the choreography isn't simply just there for flavor. It's actually a narrative moment in the movie. But I think that, stripping all that aside, I think that Silver Linings Playbook is one of the best examples we have of a movie that does mental illness right.
Mm-hmm.
That it's this struggle internally that some people might call subtle, but if you know what you're looking for, you see a lot of stuff on people's face that can let you know if they're hurting or not. And I
Yeah.
think that not only Bradley Cooper does an amazing job, but I think that Jennifer Lawrence gives just absolutely stellar in this. Definitely
She got her Oscar for.
Oscar worthy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. All right, Susan, what is your number 4?
Well, I messed up. I totally forgot that this was, I wasn't paying attention. And so I should have trumped your number 5 because it's Step Up, the first one. I
It's all
totally
right.
blanked that I had that on here. Yeah, I did enjoy that because I think the first one was pretty solid. It was a decent story. And I think Channing Tatum most excels in his dancing more than his acting. So I really enjoy when he dances.
Well, early in his career, but he's worked on it, and he's
He's
really
getting
good actor
better.
now.
He is getting better. Like if you watch him in this movie, I don't think that's a good reflection of his acting. I think in Magic Mike Last Dance, he's improved just in general. But I was glad to see he was such a great dancer.
All right, on to our number 3s. In at number 3, I have Happy Feet in at number 3. So that is the. Why did I just forget the director's name, Andrew? Because names escape me.
George Miller, right?
Yeah, George Miller. Yeah.
The
Mad
guy
Max
who
Fury
did
Road
Fury Road,
and Happy Feet.
and Happy Feet. Yeah.
Polar opposites.
So Happy Feet is a lot of fun, and I think I love the dancing in this movie. I love the choreography of these penguins. I think is really fun. The story, it's the story, but this movie's really good. So yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
all
I
right.
actually haven't seen it.
You never seen Happy
Really?
Feet? Oh, you
Never
should
seen
check
it.
it out.
Yeah, it's a good movie. It is.
Yeah,
good.
it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
All right, on to your number 3, Andrew.
Might get trumped. This is where I have Dirty Dancing.
Oh, no, it was in my
No.
honorable mentions.
Okay. This is a movie that will also get you hot and bothered by the dancing in it. And no, I think that the chemistry between Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze is like next level. It's just so good.
Yeah.
It is good.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth a mention for sure. All right, Susan, what do you got at number 3?
I've got West Side Story, but the 2021 version because I
interesting.
Yeah, I think I've seen the original and it bored me. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Now, how is this about dancing?
I just like the dancing in it. They do a lot of dancing when they're like.
Okay, so this is
Does
what
it
I'm
have to
saying.
be? I thought the rule was that they had dancing in it.
No,
It had to be about
literally
dancing.
what I just said was it's not about movies that have dancing in them. It
Oh,
is about
shoot.
movies that feature dancing
Well, then
in
I
the movie.
misunderstood that. I thought
Like
it was
dancing
just.
as a narrative plot point to it.
Right, yes, is something, yeah, that's actually, like, is the word diegetic? Like, when music is diegetic, it means it's actually
Oh.
happening in, like, the actual universe kind of thing. So, like, yeah, as
I guess
opposed to a
it's the
musical.
same-
This is the same goof as putting. I didn't put singing in the rain, but I guess that might be a thing. There's just so much dancing in this movie.
There's lots of dancing, and
And-
okay, let's go here. I mean, a lot of the plot centers on an actual dance at the high school. Like, it's
Yeah.
not, so
Well,
there is
the
a big dancing scene.
The dancing in this movie is like telling a story. Like, I mean, like it's almost the
Correct.
dialogue. It's almost like dialogue. So I just naturally,
Correct. But that's a hyper realistic thing. That's not something that really happens in the streets of New York, right?
No.
Like, right? Yeah. So
course
that's
not.
what I'm saying. Yeah.
Susan, I'm going to be your ally. On
Whereas
this
I want to be an ally here as well, because
one. That's why I said it.
the high school stuff is diegetic, so to speak. The dance at the high school is an actual dance that would authentically possibly be happening in the universe. So I think we can count that. So
I remembered when that came up, I just thought about how much I liked the choreography in this film. That's part of the reason it like blew me away. So
Yeah.
but yeah, that's why I picked it. But I guess I didn't completely understand the rules.
It's so good though. It's always worth mentioning.
It's great dance. It's so much dancing.
All
According
right.
to Aaron, West Side Story is very diuretic. Yeah.
No, that is not the word I used, but
It's very diabetic. Yeah.
Yes, you're getting closer or further away, depending. All right, on to our number twos. My number 2 is Black Swan.
Aaron, if you wouldn't mind. Drop.
All right, I guess we know where you have that. What is your number 2, Andrew?
Well, I guess I didn't fully because this is where I have Singing in the Rain, but I thought that was like part of their job. Like, isn't Moses Supposes? You've seen this movie a million times, Aaron. Isn't Moses Supposes them choreographing a scene for the movie?
No, it is them trying to learn how to speak properly, to say things with proper diction and those kind of things. So,
well, what about at the very end of the movie when we see him dancing with the woman with the long shawl?
Yep.
Isn't that like a recording for
that is a little bit metaphorical, but the actual scene at the end where like the gotta dance, like that whole thing, that is like part of a movie that they're making. So yeah, definitely.
Okay, so it's your number 1. You just didn't know.
Nope, I took a much stricter view of the category, but that's okay. That's okay.
So that would be Susan's number 2 then.
Well, I hope this still counts. I know my 1 is safe, but I picked The Greatest Showman. But I mean that they're actually dancing in their show.
No, that's a good
right?
pick.
It's fine. Yes, perfect, great. Yes, Greatest
they're
Showman.
dancing in their show. Like I think that's what they're doing. So and that's the image that comes to me is just the opening number is they're like just them dancing and then and they dance at the end too. So they're doing that. But I mean, I just love The Greatest Showman. I think it's such an amazing movie and it's one of my favorite cinematic experiences as well. I bought the soundtrack like immediately,
yeah,
right when I got off like out of the movie. So yeah,
Pasek and Paul, man.
We need more movies that champion great people like P.T. Barnum.
Andrew's trolling me right now. Andrew's trying so hard to get me to go off on this movie, and I'm not going to do it.
Yeah,
not going to happen.
I like it.
No,
I don't blame you.
Honestly,
it's
I am
insanely good.
100% with you, Susan. Objectively, like this movie it could possibly be the greatest musical of all time if they hadn't named him P.T. Barnum.
Sure. I know his backstory. I know he's not a good person, but just as the movie, like
it's so good. It's so
good. The music is incredible.
It is. The music is absolutely insane. It's so good. All right, on to our number ones. If you know me, you already know what my number one is going to be. It is Swing Kids. This is a movie that Aaron and pretty much only Aaron champions.
The Aryans? Oh no.
That is very unintentional. Especially considering the subject matter of the movie itself, taking place in World War II Germany. And this is about two friends, one of whom joins the Nazi youth and the other who doesn't, and how swing dancing is a part of their common love and can bring the world together. It stars a young Christian Bale doing some amazing work, and Robert Sean Leonard as the two main characters. It still to this day does not have a high definition release. It is still only available on DVD or streaming at a lower quality. So keeping my fingers crossed that somebody will give this the 4K upgrade. Never happening, but hope that it might. So Swing Kids is my number one.
You can learn some editing software yourself, you know.
Do some but I don't have access to the like original prints or anything to do like a full high scan res.
How hard can that be?
Yeah. Andrew, what is your number one? I think we know.
Yes, Aronofsky is coming back. He's taking me with Black Swan. I think that the performance Natalie Portman gives in Black Swan is like one of the greatest performances ever put to screen. She's asked
You're right.
so much. Forgive me if I'm wrong. Didn't she do this movie while she was pregnant?
Yes.
And that's just absolutely crazy. What she put herself through physically, mentally. This had to be such a demanding film for her.
Yeah.
I think that Aronofsky is a visual master, and I think that is just on full display here. Truly a terrifying movie. It really is so unsettling, but it's also the performances everywhere. It is this is movie magic, if you ask me.
It's really good. I had it as my number two, and Aronofsky is an artist, so to speak. He definitely does some interesting things, and what is real and what isn't. But man, you cannot help but get the tone and mood that he is trying to give you. He's really, really good at communicating through the movie, through visuals, how he wants you to feel, and you feel the way he wants you to feel.
These are really the type of horror films that I love.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a horror. Yeah, I think this is a psychological
thriller.
Horror film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
totally.
No, I agree.
All right, Susan, what's your number one?
Yeah. I would have put Black Swan. I probably should have swapped that for West Side Story. But my number one, I was so excited to put it on here. Center Stage. Love this movie so much. I will watch if I see it on a streaming, like it doesn't matter. I'll watch it again. I don't know what it is about this movie, but it gives me so much like nostalgia and feel good. I guess it's like, I mean, it's a rom-com, but like with dancing, a lot of dancing. It's incredible dancing. It also shows the difficulties of ballet dancing and the trying to keep weight and the way how difficult the teachers can be. But I don't know. I just really love this movie.
That is Center Stage is Susan's number one. All right, one thing left, guys. Let's talk about some buried treasure. What is that one thing in any area of pop culture you want to make sure people know about? Susan, you're the guest, so you will go last. Andrew, kick us off.
I'm going to go with a song, believe it or not. I'm getting a lot more into music
Different.
now. Yeah. This is a song. It's a cover of Massive Attack's Teardrop. It's being covered by a young woman named Aurora, who I'd never heard of before. But her voice is so absolutely perfect for this song. If you know the song, Teardrop was the song for House. It was House's intro song. It's very haunting and chilling, and this is a very stripped down, bare live cover. It's just her, a keyboard, a guitar, and I don't know what they're called, but they're the percussion boxes that you sit on and you tap. It's a very, very just stripped down bones song, but her voice carries the song, and it makes it so eerie and haunting. It's absolutely beautiful, and the fact that it's done live makes it that much better. Just live in a studio.
Yeah,
Nice.
that sounds really, really fun.
Yeah, I have to look it up.
Yeah. Those percussion boxes are called cajones, by the way. So
Look at my cojones.
no, Andrew, no. See why?
Because you made me do it.
I did. All right. My buried treasure is a reality show on Netflix. Imagine me talking about reality television. It is Physical 100. This is a Korean show.
I've been wanting to watch this. Please tell me it's good.
It's not good.
Oh.
No. It's interesting. So I think conceptually it's interesting enough for me to stay tuned. And so I continue to have it on. The concept is that it starts with 100 very physically fit people. The entire conceit of the show is the idea of what body type is the most athletic or strongest. And so they have every person who is a part of this has done a plaster cast of their upper body. And those plaster casts are displayed in like a museum kind of setting, and almost like a Michelangelo's David kind of situation, without the full frontal nudity. And so each of these not just represents but is the torso of one of the contestants. And then they compete in a series of challenges to see who will win. And the winners continue on, and the losers have to take a sledgehammer to their torso because they are not their body type is not the fittest or whatever.
It sounds a lot like that. What was that? It wasn't Ink Master, but it was kind of like the body painting show.
Oh yeah, Skin Wars, I think is what that was called. Yeah,
so you got eliminated. You had to go wash the body. It was very awkward.
Yes, that's right. So anyways, there are lots of different kinds of, like, some of the strong people are more like linebacker strong. Some of them are more martial arts strong. Some of them are mountain climbing strong. There's a baseball player. In fact, the baseball player is the only American in the show. He plays baseball over in Korea. And so every once in a while I'll be like, hey, somebody's speaking English. It's always that guy. But anyhow, the concept is very, very interesting. The execution is so-so. I don't think that is definitely produced in a different way than I'm used to seeing most competition reality shows produced here.
I'll just American Ninja Warrior.
Right. Yes. I'll give you an example. There is a very common type of editing that happens, I believe, in more of kind of the Asian editing mindset, that is this idea that you show the same thing over and over again, but not only do you show it over and over again, you play the audio over and over again. So it's this weird effect of like hearing the same audio, 4 different times in a row as you see the thing from 4 different angles. So it's much more stripped down in that way and feels underproduced to me. I've gotten used to it a little bit, but I don't necessarily like it. It's also, they take so long on every one of these challenges. It's almost like I would have rather have just had a website where I could pick the challenges I wanted to watch and just watch the whole thing the way it's edited, because it's not compiled in a way to really emphasize the more fun moments or fun challenges as they happen, because there's 100 people here. And the fact that they start off with these one-on-one battles to eliminate 50 of the people and show us every single one of the 50 battles, like, I just don't think that's great production, because they're not all, that interesting. You can just put a graphic up and show me who won for ones that aren't that interesting. But
you're selling me, Aaron, on this.
Well, good. No, that's fine. It may be more enjoyable to you. I don't enjoy the production on it. I think
not selling me. So
the challenges aren't as interesting as I want them to be. I'm only 4 episodes in. and still have only seen one challenge, or maybe two challenges. So it's like, when I say challenges, I mean, the
Sure, like the
levels,
yeah.
kind of thing. So there's lots more to be told that I'm going to watch. It's very Squid Game formatted. In other words, it feels a lot like Squid Game. They all come in and stand on numbers, and so yeah, the concept enough is keeping me hooked, but I'm not a huge fan of the production. So Physical 100 is on Netflix.
Susan.
Also, another interesting, before we head to Susan, I will just say, I think it's really great for me to watch a show like this that is produced in Korea with 100 contestants. Because, like I said, I'm going to say 95 of the 100 of them are Koreans. And it's interesting for me to watch something where I feel like the minority, and to have that idea of, wait a second, why am I rooting for the white guy? Like, why is that happening right now? Like, how do identity, like those kind of things, they're just kind of built into us in some ways. And it's been a really interesting and fun mental experiment for me to watch. And I've really appreciated that part of it. So anyhow, I wanted to mention that as well. Susan, what is your buried treasure?
Mine is Shotgun Wedding on Prime Video, another Prime Video movie starring Jennifer Lopez and Josh Duhamel. I was just so pleasantly surprised with this one. I thought I was going into just like, I guess I didn't really pay attention to the rating, because this is a very R movie because of the graphic violence. Like, it's comical violence, but I don't know. J-Lo's definitely a I guess I don't know if I can say like, she kicks butt in this movie, and I enjoyed her. And Jennifer Coolidge plays Josh Duhamel's mom in this film, and she's on fire lately anyways, which, as she should be. I'm so happy to see her get the recognition that she's deserved for so long, but she is so dang funny in this movie. Every line she gives is like the funniest thing I've heard her say in a long time. So it's still corny, don't get me wrong, and there's going to be some predictable stuff, but there are a few twists that may not be predictable. So I think it's another fun, in addition to Somebody I Used to Know. I feel like Somebody I Used to Know, couples and singles can appreciate, and then couples, if you just want a lighthearted, happy, fun film to watch this Valentine's Day, Shotgun Wedding.
And there you go. Shotgun Wedding. Check it out. That is Susan's buried treasure. Well, we did it, guys. We managed to do a podcast. Congratulations to all involved. You didn't maybe get your plumber or your ballerina, but you did manage to entertain. So well done. Thanks so much for joining us today for Sif Pop. It is part of the Studio DNA podcast network. You can find out more about other shows on the network at studiodna.media or by searching Studio DNA in your podcast player. Huge thanks to Andrew for hanging out again today.
Well, thank you, buddy.
Big thanks to producer Phil for producing the audio and video show.
Thanks, Phil.
Big thanks to Susan for coming in again today. Susan, tell people where they can find you.
You can find me at thischicksflix.com, or I'm on the socials at thischicksflix.
That is This Chicks Flicks with X's for chicks and flicks. Thischicksflix.com to check out Susan's work. Appreciate you, Susan. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Much love and gratitude to our Sif Pop members as well for giving monthly to make Sif Pop a real thing. Support starts at $3 a month. You can check out all the different things, including the bonus episodes for some of our members. You can check that all out at patreon.com/SifPop. Thanks for looking at that. Lots of ways to connect with us. You can leave a comment, a rating, or a review at Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen. You can also email us. Yes, we still have email. feedback@sifpop.com if you want to do that. And finally, if you're having a good time, your movie-loving friends will probably like the show too. So make sure you let them know about it, and that listening is much easier than maintaining a positive body image while watching Mike and his friends do their magic. We will be back next week with Ant-Man and some other stuff. So we will see you then.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks to everybody who joined in. I saw we got raided. I imagine that's because Captain's Pod finished up while we were still doing our thing. So
I didn't know what that meant.
So thank you. That is a Twitch thing. So thanks for coming in and hanging out. I see David in there, and Josh and Slab, Nick and Jay Bourgeois hanging out as well. JCD, I think, popped in. So thanks, guys, for coming in and livening up the chat. Lots of fun. So we appreciate you. We'll see you. We should be live again next week. So hopefully we'll see you next Friday.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.